We're going to talk about the new song Memoria, that, I think that's what it's called, that just got premiered. Let's get started. So Band-Maid's huge live show the other day was really all over social media, a big deal. I know a lot of people from this community and a lot of people from the online Japanese music loving community, sorry, spat on myself, disgusting, were there. I saw all of your posts online and I was kind of jealous that I didn't get to be at the show as well. But the big talk that I think a lot of people were mentioning was that there was the premiere of a new song, which we believe is called Memoria. Sometimes it's a little bit, have to be careful, is that actually what the song was called? A couple of people said different names for it, and we had a similar problem with when From Now On was premiered. It's like working out, do we all agree on what the name of this song is? So anyway, we believe it's called Memoria, and it was premiered, and it was interesting because it was so different. Now, up until this point, there's really been kind of three camps of people on the Band-Maid sound. There's those who just love everything Band-Maid's doing, which, fine, that's absolutely great. I'm 100% with that. There have been some people who have been, should we say, I noticed there was a lot of comments, especially when the Unleashed single came out. Some people saying, oh, it's not original enough, and some people who didn't like the return of that very sort of hyper, high-speed, slightly high-pitched, scratchy guitar tone that Konami's been using recently. Kind of, I always say it's the guitar tone that first came in on Screaming and has really been prevalent on things like Unseen World. There was some people who weren't so keen on that. Obviously, the Unleash EP was an EP anyway, so we don't expect quite as much variation in it. They were just leaning into the sound that, very much is their signature sound. But there's some people who weren't so keen on that, and then there's kind of Camp 3, which is people like me who just love everything that Band-Maid have been releasing. I mean, I'm not a fanboy. I always say, I say it, we don't kiss ass on this channel, but Band-Maid have just been really on point and consistent of recent, but I would still like to see more variation. And when you're releasing something like, an EP like Unleash, I really enjoyed it, but I just was dying for like one song that just went in a different direction, something that was a little bit more of a ballad. They managed to get a lot of variation out of being hard rock in every single song, but like, oh, where's that one song that's really different? Now, something that I pointed out before, and this was the case with About Us, is there is this thing that I've noticed with Band-Maid, that sometimes if they want to do a song that's really not their sound, really sort of more poppy song, they will tend to do it just completely outside of an album, or they'll release it just somewhere between albums. We had this with Start Over, which a song I really like. Hate the video, really like the song. Start Over just kind of appeared, alongside Screaming, ironically, between albums. We had this with About Us, which obviously that was a love letter to the fans, but it appeared sort of outside of the album context. Obviously, I think one of the big differences was, as often referenced, Page. Page on Conqueror was probably the one time that they put it front and center on an album. And they have other songs, but as a general, if they want to go really outside of their comfort zone, they'll tend to move it away from the albums, which I think is probably an effort to try and not shake the core fan base. I like to hear these kind of tracks on albums, but anyway, fine. Who knows? This might appear on an album in the future. But here we are. I was kind of saying at the time after Unleash EP came out, I was like, maybe we're going to get this again, where sometime after Unleash, they're then going to drop in that one song that was really different that they came up with, but, maybe didn't want to put in the middle of a really hard rock EP. And looks like, again, my predictions were correct. So let's talk a little bit about this song. The first thing to say is it might be a little bit interesting to first establish which parts of the live performance were the song, because the performance of Memoria seems to be broken into a relatively lengthy intro, which was like a piano bit, which wasn't actually played by Konami at the time. It seemed to just be a sort of pre-recorded intro that was played as the stage went dark. And that was very nice and very dramatic, and there was kind of like a string sounds behind it, and it was almost very cinematic, really sort of settled the mood of the whole arena down, waiting for the song. Now, the question is that actually part of the song itself, or was that just a pre-recorded intro? Because that faded away and then the song began, although the song itself was built on basically the same chord pattern. So whether that will actually appear in a final recording or not, we don't know. But when the song kicked in, it was a very gentle, light song with a sort of a jazzy undertone, somewhere between a pop ballad and a more jazzy sort of song. It really lent towards what I'd been saying so long, which is that I just wanted to hear a song where you had Psyche performing in a sort of, I keep on saying the word jazzy, but a sort of jazzy way, where it's really a mix between her voice and Misa doing something very free form, very flowing on the bass. And that's really what this song was about. The guitars very much backed off. It was very light picking, very little distortion. There was no big thump. And I was kind of thinking when I was hearing this, I was like, okay, there's going to be some point towards the end where we get a big thunder chorus and everyone comes thumping in with loud guitars to really, sort of accent the last chorus. But that didn't happen, and I think the song was better for it because it was just impactful enough on its own. So again, very light playing, and this gave room for us to really hear the full body of the bass guitar, really hear Misa's playing, and to hear Psyche's vocals. Now, as always, I often talk about one of the greatest qualities of Akane's drum playing is not just that she's a really good drummer, but like any good musician, she knows how to be restrained in a way that still has technical qualities to it. Here we had a nice beat, a beat that was simple but just really carried everything along great. I loved her playing. And it just kind of made me wonder whether those acoustic performances we'd heard, they'd really sort of lent into doing in the last year. That obviously gave us things like the Sayonaki Dori acoustic performance that everyone loved, and myself included. I wonder if just doing that was what made them think, hey, yeah, we just want to do a song that is like that. Just a song that is really chilled out, a sort of Mochi Tochi's moment, perhaps. For me, it just felt like they had done a song where it was very restrained for the guitars, very restrained for the drums, but the bass and the vocals really got to come out front and center. And whether you like this song or not, it must be admitted it was really lovely just to hear Misa and Psyche getting that moment to just shine together while the rest of the band just laid down the groundwork for them. So I thought that was brilliant. I thought it was beautifully played. But let's move on to one thing, which is why it was okay for this song to be so restrained. It seems like a weird comment, but let me get into that. Howard, that was the worst segue ever. Anyway, so my point is, what I was gonna say, I was just trying to make it into a different chapter. It didn't work. The reason why there didn't have to be a big moment where everything thumped in with the guitars is just because this song was extremely, almost weirdly powerful in its melody. Now, two things that I've said about Band-Maid before, if I was to be ultra harshly critical, is that I never really considered them to be a big chorus band. And I know there's going to be people who are going and go, oh no, they've got super catchy songs, and you'll name a couple of them, I'm sure you will. But as a general, even with their, you've got things like Choose Me, and I get that. But even with their best songs, usually it's not the earworm chorus that is what we go to Band-Maid for. And the other thing that I pointed out as well, and I noticed this when Conqueror came around, this is one of the reasons why I loved Conqueror when it was released, is because that was the first moment I realised, up until that point, Band-Maid had been a band who I mainly went to for like really rocking songs, and I just loved the musicianship and everything. And Conqueror was the first one where it really like hit in the heartstrings. There were songs like, you're like, wow, yeah, that feels like emotional, that really kind of hits me, and I was like, yeah, I never really noticed that, but Band-Maid were just kind of like a band who I enjoyed rocking with, but didn't have many songs like that. Again, you can probably pull out examples, but for me, Conqueror was a real step in that direction. And that's what makes this song so distinct for me, is because this was both incredibly earwormy, like really catchy. I mean, we just did our end of year awards where I was talking about the most catchy song, and I already gave that award out, but this would be a strong competitor if this came out a few days earlier. This was a really, really catchy song, just one that just going around, after you hear it, you're just singing it along to yourself all day. I can't sing. And you already knew that. But it was just, it was really like stuck in your head. But on top of that, it's a real, like, just, you feel it, you feel the emotion. And I think it kind of helped as well seeing it live, seeing Psyche's performance, because she performed with a lot of emotion as well. The song really not only had a musical variation, but it also hit on two things that clearly weren't a focus so much on Unleashed, which was doing a song that was earwormy, and I don't mean that in a cheap way, I mean that in a genuinely positive way, one that sticks with you for its catchiness, but also a song that had a deeply emotional feeling. I know some of the lyrics were in English. I got to admit, I didn't really get enough from the lyrics to really sort of say. It's one of those ones where it wasn't so much the lyrics that got me as just the performance itself, just the way it was delivered, the melody. You know, sometimes like you can have something which is just emotional in the way it was written, and that and the performance, it just worked. So I thought that this was a beautifully written song that took us into an area that we know Band-Maid can do, certainly since Conqueror, but that they perhaps hadn't really shown on Unleash or Unseen World. It took us into a place that we haven't got to see from them so much recently, and that I really loved. So in conclusion, this is just, I really love this. Is it going to be my favourite Band-Maid song ever? Probably not. But it's certainly going to be up there. Because there's always a lot to be said for a song that stands out amongst a whole portfolio of songs that a band has as just being something very different, especially when it works. And this is something that I've said about Band-Maid, is that although I love that they lean into their core fans, I love that their core sound, and I love that their fans go along with that as well and love their core sound. But it's really interesting that Band-Maid are one of those bands who, and I especially felt this with About Us, they can do something that you go, wow, I would not expect a band like this to do that. And then the fans still love it anyway. We had that with Page, we had that with About Us. And this, to me, I haven't really seen the fan response yet, but I would be surprised if anyone didn't love this. This was just really effective songwriting. They did something different, and as always, when they do something different, somehow they nail it. I hope that we hear more of this. I love hearing the variation. I think they've got enough. They're at this point, they've got enough rock songs, especially since they're going over to Pony Canyon. Pony Canyon, you can tell Pony Canyon were like, this is why people love you. Lean into the rock stuff. We're not going to make you do anything other than what you do as your core sound, and you come back to us. And so I think they just gave let the unleashed Band-Maid to do what they love doing most. But I think as well as that, it's just really nice when you have these little moments where they do this kind of thing, because what I was saying is they have so many rock songs that they can fill up a 3-hour set of just doing hard rocking songs. But it's always nice to have enough of these type of songs as well that you can pepper in your set and just do something really different. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Looking forward to seeing what you guys say in the comments. Like I haven't really seen as much feedback on this song as I want to yet. So tell me what you think, and hopefully I'll be able to follow up on some of those comments. But until I hopefully see you very soon in Japan for the next one of these videos, for now, ciao ciao. Go listen to the song, it's brilliant.